My next guest is Henry Dudek, a veteran from Nanuet. Welcome, Henry.
Welcome. Nice to be here.
So I'm delighted to have you on our program. And as you know, during Hometown Happenings, we always have a segment that features a local veteran, a resident of Clarkstown, and really to kind of put some emphasis on our veterans and what they've done for our nation and for our community. So Henry, maybe we could just speak a little bit before we get into your service in the military. Maybe you could give a little bit about your background, where you came from, and how long you've been living here in Clarkstown.
Okay. I was actually born in Brooklyn, but raised in Queens all my life. And in fact, that was right up until the time I got married. And then I moved to Franklin Square, lived there for about 4 years, and then moved to Nanuet, 1973.
Okay.
Moved in on Halloween.
Really?
Yeah, quite a thing. So I spent about, let me see, I'm trying to think now, 38 years in the phone company.
Mm-hmm.
And retired now about 20. So.
And of course, you're married, and
Yes, my lovely bride and best friend now is my wife, Patricia. And I'd be lost without her. She is really, I don't know what to say. She keeps me going. Because otherwise, getting older, some medical problems, but like I say, she keeps me going. She's my best friend.
that's great to hear. And I see you guys active and out and about at different functions, and certainly at your active members with the Nanuet Senior Club as well.
Well, not me. That's my wife.
Right.
She's active with more of these civic association type of things than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved with the Elks for about 35 years or more, and the Boy Scouts,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm slowly winding down and trying to give up as much of my responsibilities.
So let's talk a little bit about your service. You are a veteran of the United States Army,
Correct.
Vietnam. Maybe you could talk just a little bit about your service, how long you were in the service for.
Okay. Actually, it was, I guess, 1964 when I got this letter with a token to report to the induction station in Whitehall. And I was thinking about not going because I needed 2 tokens, actually, to get there.
Mm-hmm.
2-fare zone, you know how it is.
Yeah.
So it wasn't my first visit to Whitehall Street because I had been down there for testing, and they put you through a whole gamut of, what would you say, IQ type of things. But then I got, in February 1964, I was inducted. Then went straight from there to Fort Dix, New Jersey. Spent my next 8 weeks in Fort Dix. Got a week's leave. And then I had a report to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is an artillery training base. So actually, I didn't go to training. I went straight to an artillery outfit.
Mm.
So I guess they had been undermanned because there was a number of us had come in together, and they broke us up. They sent some of us to gun batteries, and I wound up in headquarters battery, and they tried to make me a surveyor. Not that they tried to make me, but I was becoming a surveyor, but that only lasted a week.
Mm.
because they had fellas rotating from Germany who were regular surveyors, and they put me into Fire Direction Center. And I guess they liked my mathematical marks, so they made me a computer, because at that time they weren't using computers. We had what they call graphic firing sticks, which were similar to slide rules, and that's how we would use to send commands to the guns as to what elevation to put on the guns, and then we had to figure deflection and what type of charge, because the 105 used bags. They had 7 bags in a 105. Charges 2 to 7. I guess that's only 6 bags, isn't it? And so
Fort Dix was your basic training, and
right.
then where'd you go from Fort Dix?
Fort Sill.
Fort Sill, and then Fort Sill, you went over to Vietnam?
Right. What happened with that was that I was there about, let's see, I reported in about May or June, and then the following May or June, the whole battalion was locked in headquarters mess hall. I mean, they had MPs at the door, and so then the colonel stands up there and he says, "I got some good news for you guys. We're going to an undisclosed place in Southeast Asia." Like nobody knew. But this was part of Johnson's call-up. I mean, this was the first time that soldiers were going to be sent in mass. So, lucky me, I was one of those that got to go.
And how long were you in Vietnam for?
Fortunately, I was only there till the following following February. And then I was ETS'd, or end of term service.
Okay.
So.
And talk to me a little bit about your service in Vietnam. So you were involved in combat, obviously.
Right. Usually don't talk about those things, but anyway, when we had spent about 3 weeks to 4 weeks on a troop carrier. It was an old Second World War troop carrier that had brought troops home. It was the General William H. Gordon. So we left out of Oakland Army Terminal in San Francisco, and I had the good fortune of being what they called ship's crew, or captain's crew, or whatever you want. But our battalion commander was ship's captain, and in other words, he was responsible for all the troops on the ship. So he was very nice, and with the 5,000 troops that were on the ship, he said, my battalion is going to pull all the duties for the next month. So that was God or KP, and that's what I did. I pulled God for so long. We were 4 hours on and 4 hours off. It was, and in the off hours, you couldn't do anything because everything was off limits. And so then we complained so much, they said, okay, we're going to take you off of that. And needless to say, they didn't realize we were going to go on KP. So I should have kept my mouth shut, because KP was actually worse than the guard duty. All right, so after a month on there, we get to the Bay of Quignon, and we're going to get off the ship. They said, all right, everybody. Our battalion was going to disembark in the morning, which is okay. So morning comes and they say, nobody's disembarking because they blew up all the bridges going inland. They knew we were there. So after a couple of days, the landing craft, military, you know, the old, like you used to see in the front
LST,
would
yeah,
drop
the
down, and then all the
LSTs,
GIs were down the rope ladders into the landing craft, take off to the beach. Now everybody is psyched. You know, here we're going to hit the beach. There's going to be all this shooting and whatnot going on. So we get to the beach. The thing drops out. We all rush out. Hit the thing. Nothing. But they landed us in a leper colony. I'll tell you, it could almost turn your stomach to look at these people. I mean, they had holes in their face. I mean, actually, nothing there. You know, eyes were missing, mouth was distorted, and you know, I mean, this one kid that wasn't so bad, he had a cork in his nose. You would think of the old Uncle Remus thing with a,
Wow.
you know. So fortunately, we didn't get to stay there too long. A couple hours later, we took off by truck, and we boated inland. We went through the first pass, because Vietnam is actually you had the coastal lowlands, then you went up a set of mountains, and you had the central highlands, and then there was another set of mountains that was the highlands. So we were going Central Highlands, which was to An Khê. But so at An Khê they had a what would I say it I guess it was a public airport, but if you remember the old airport that we had up here on Smith Road, that's about what it was equal to. It was almost a nothing. You couldn't get anything big out of that. But that's where we were going to stay for the night. So they put us on the edge of the airport. We all dug in, right? And something that I was watching a show the other night, and it reminded me, and I had a tough night sleeping. But we had put out our Claymore mines, and these were anti-personnel mines, and everybody was on key. So although there was 4 men in a foxhole, 2 were supposed to be sleeping and 2 were awake, nobody got any sleep. We were all keyed up. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything. We got out there in the morning. All the claymores had been turned around.
Wow.
So that was a good initiation. We just you had to be on your guard all the time. So for the next 2 weeks, we went to an area about a mile away where we established trying to think the name of the camp. We used to call it Hong Kong Mountain, but it wound up being the base camp for the first Cav. We laid PSP, which were steel plates that you put together. You know, they were about 120 pounds or something like that. And you interconnected about 60 of them so that when the choppers came in, they had something to land on. So we did this for 2 weeks, and then the main part of the first Cav arrived. So, fortunately, about this time, our howitzers arrived. What had happened was, of course, we were the first ones on the ship. Our howitzers and most of our heavy equipment went into the bottom of the boat. We were the first ones off. The ship went down the coast to Saigon, dropping men off at various places, and then had to come back with our howitzers. So it took about 2 weeks. So we got our howitzers. 2 weeks later, 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 we got our howi Now at least we're starting to feel a little bit better. We had greater protection. But, so there was a number of howitzer units attached to the first cav, but we had 5-ton trucks. We even had a 10-ton truck, a lot of deuce and a halves, which were the prime movers for the howitzers. The general for the first cav, I can't remember. I'm not thinking that he was General Simrosky, but it's been a long time. It's been 50 years plus. Anyway, he liked those trucks for his men. So all we wound up with were Jeeps and 3/4. And he sent us all over the country doing, so we weren't hanging around base. You know, we went to Bonsan, we went to, trying to think, down the coast. But in one of our trips down the coast, it was around the 1st of November. We spent a month there chasing the VC, and what it wound up was they had some, what would you say? They were actually on the side of the VC. They were giving them all the information, to, you know, telling them in advance where we were going, so that they would always be out of range. They would cut the road so that trucks couldn't get past with the howitzers. So they were always out of range. Well, they set up a dummy operation and they wound up catching these guys. So that was the end of that. But it was November 1965. We get a call. Well, the colonel comes in. He says, "Okay, we're going. We have to move. Everybody pack up the stuff. We're getting out of here right away." So we flew everything, howitzers, things loaded into Hueys. Went to, I'm sorry, not Hueys, Chinooks, double rotors, to Pleiku, which is in not the Central Highlands, but the high Highlands. And then we motored a few miles from there, and I'll give you a brief rundown of what was going on there. Was that the first to the 7th, to the 2nd to the 7th, had reports of a battalion-sized unit operating in that area, in the Idrang Valley. So the first Cav unit had gone in there, and they had run into a lot more than they could handle. So they didn't know what was going on. They had to send some sort of reinforcements or help, and that's how we wound up there. So attached to our unit, we had South Vietnamese Rangers. In the morning, first thing, Rangers are going up the valley, and we get a call saying they're going to retreat. They forgot their lunch. What do you mean they forgot their lunch? These guys travel with little rice sacks and tin pots on their thing. You know, they're never without their lunch or dinner or whatever you call it. Anyway, they start coming back, retreating back, and the sides of the box canyon open up, and all these North Vietnamese regulars start chasing down the hill, hoping to catch them the same way that they had caught the first cow. So when that happens, we open up with artillery, and we start getting all of these, you know, we're shooting. We shot for over 24 hours probably, and we had, at that time, we had 18 howitzers with us.
Wow.
But we weren't the only ones there. I mean, there were other units I didn't realize at the time that had also been brought in and stationed in other areas. So there was a lot of firepower going on. The end result was that there weren't, I don't want to give out figures because I don't remember exactly how many there was, but probably less than what I can count on both hands of fellows from the first cav that could walk out of there under their own power.
Wow.
Most of them were either wounded or killed. And then that came, the worst part was having to load the dead onto vehicles because they had been sitting there or laying there for a day or 2 days in the hot sun, and the body was just permeating. You tried to pick them up and the skin just came right off of the bone, and the smell was atrocious. I just don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's unbelievably powerful, memory. And one of the things that happens on this program as we bring our vets on, they'll talk about stories that they don't ever really talk about, and it's not to glorify, that experience, but it's to give a real appreciation for our residents of the sacrifice and the service of our vets. We're about out of time for this segment, but I do want to thank you for your willingness to come on and just give a little glimpse about your service in Vietnam in combat. And I want to thank you for that because I know that's not easy. Vets never like talking about their experience, and it's been my experience that vets don't even really like talking about themselves. It's oftentimes difficult to get vets to be able to agree to come on and speak about their experience. But if it wasn't for your service, in the artillery, there certainly would be men that would not have come home. And we want to thank you for your service and your willingness for coming on and to speak a little bit about your service and in the Army in Vietnam. Thank you for being my guest.
You're welcome.
And coming up, Joe Simoes, our town planner.